Mike Berry.
Howdy. There's only two of us. Now I'm nervous. Now I got stage fright.
Exactly. See, you're like the center of attention right here.
Yeah.
See, I can't. I'm not even doing that right. I got to do. See, it's the
Yeah.
opposite.
I'm never. I don't do it enough.
Yeah,
I gotta start doing more often. In the
exactly.
wintertime, I'm pretty good about these streams, but it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough right here because I'll just keep working all day until I'm done. So
Oh yeah. Well, you're retired now.
yeah, but I took on just a few more hives.
See, see.
Yeah, I almost put that in there. It's like,
But Paul got that wrong. It's SDWT.
that's right. Silver diamond white trash. Paul, get it right.
Exactly. You know. Yeah. Everybody. Bruce will be on shortly. He is running behind, and Greg is somewhere in the universe. So we got the world famous, the beekeeper of beekeepers,
Yeah.
the honorable Mike Berry with us tonight.
Talking bees. Yeah. I
That's
tell
it,
you,
man.
it's tough to talk bees when you've been playing with bees all day.
It's
But
very difficult. Yeah.
I'm all stung up, and I just had a heck of a day today. But it was a good one. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, I finally was able to get into some of mine recently. I got a video coming up. Well, it'll be out Friday, I think. I think I already uploaded the darn thing. Uh, I got stung up a little bit. I went through and pulled. I started swapping out some of those infinity frames that I bought.
Mm.
So I got a couple frames in the supers, and then I threw in the larger colonies. I slapped a drone frame in and another frame. So I swapped out
Yeah.
basically four of the frames just to start that process. And I was doing this in between storms. It had stormed all night, and it had stopped at like 6 or so in the morning. And then we were getting storms that they were saying were 6 or 7 o'clock, something like that, 8 o'clock. So I was doing it in between all this weather, and I had the nitrile gloves, of course. So I probably got, I had to have 10, 12 stings on my wrists. They were lighting me up. So, but
Yeah, they know that weather, man. And
oh yeah,
this
yeah,
month, the first part of our season was all like that, in between rains constantly. I even got videos where it starts raining while I'm videoing, and they're just nasty.
yeah.
The weather's calmed here to where I'm working. I'm back to working without gloves. We're okay.
Oh,
I got
that's good.
stung because I had just a veil and I was moving some nukes over. And sometimes when you take those bees and you flip that box over and you go wham, they don't like it all the time, and they decided to get me in the neck. They got me in the neck. They got me in the neck. They got me in the arms. They got me in my shirt. And I'm like, well, that didn't go over too well. But
Yeah,
what's crazy is the rest of the day I went through probably, I don't know, 35 hives today, and no problems whatsoever. That
nothing.
one dude shaking it like that just
Yeah,
it's that physics things about equal reactions and things.
right.
That
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, and the one day when we're in between storms and I decided to do that work that I was doing, that was the first time all season that I cracked boxes and was pulling frames in the deeps.
yeah.
So they were just they were not happy. But I'll tell you, for how the colonies looked over there, there's 12 colonies now, and that's I haven't split anything just yet. So I basically
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you could say, and I know you're going to start going, and you're going to be doing all this and that.
I am.
Oh, I know. I started thinking to myself recently, do I split colonies and potentially decrease my honey crop, or do I demerate a couple extra colonies to try and capitalize on honey crop? And the dead outs that I had, just toss a package in them.
Right.
And
There
I
you
got
go.
I got looking at the numbers and I'm like, you know what? If I spend, a couple $100 on packages, all I have to do is produce like 40 extra pounds of honey. And I'm like, that's easy.
Right.
So that's what I'm planning on doing. I probably will. I mean, I'm going to demerate, I don't know, either 8 or 10 colonies. So probably 8, just so I don't go too crazy. But I mean, the colonies already, I'm telling you, like, queens have already moved down because I've got the deep medium
Yeah.
configuration. Queens, for the most part, have moved down. I was finding them on the deep frames. There's brood down below. So I'm like, yes, I need to get over there. And I would have done it the other day when I was checking them, but we had like the last few days it was freezing. This morning we're low 20s. I did not want to put a queen excluder on and risk that
Right.
colony clustering up high and then leaving, maybe queen down below. I just didn't want to get into those goofy situations there. So I do know some people that put excluders on up here already. And I said, you do realize, like yesterday, it was 38 degrees as a high. I
Yeah.
said, you're rolling the dice a little too much there. So,
Well, you'd like to think they'll keep her where she needs to be, but you just don't know. And
yeah.
they're going to go towards the food.
Yep.
Yeah, we're it's talking about that makes me think of what I did this year. And so for the last 5 years or so, when I started using queen cells, my splits, I would always keep my queen right where she belonged, right where she was, and that would always produce honey. And this year I split all my queens away because I'm tired of stressing out about trying to figure out swarming. Because I can keep them I can do like 70, 80% from swarming if I just leave my queen when I split. And thinking of what you said about what you're thinking about doing, splitting and sacrificing honey. I think I've sacrificed some honey this year for less
Mm.
stress in my life of every single week going out and trying to perform swarm control, make sure we're good. And I tell you, sometimes you got to look at that trade off. What are you trying to do? Do you want to get, and
Yeah.
not joking. I know we joke about this, but if your goal is 30 to have a good number of hives when you roll into winter next year, so that's what I was telling a guy. He comes on here now and again. He's usually in the chat, but I was telling a guy the other day he had to buy a drum of honey to wrap up his sales. And this year he's wanting to really grow fast and buy bees from everywhere. I'm like, well, look, you can buy honey cheaper and sell it and repack it. It's from the same areas. Hey,
Hmm.
Bruce. And then you can go out and just split and just sacrifice the honey crop. It's always
Yeah.
a man told me when I first started beekeeping, he was a 50-year beekeeper, and he said, and some people will find this, they're going to say, oh, that's not true because we got these people doing it and that. But he said, and I think I said it last time I was on with y'all, you're either raising bees or you're raising honey.
Yeah.
And you can do them both, no doubt. I mean, I'm moving out 4 nukes here in another couple of days, and I'm going to make honey. I hope but you either do them really good or you're just selling excesses. And
Hmm.
when you're going to make a lot of bees, you're going to have to sacrifice that honey a little bit,
Oh
and
yeah.
but it's all the end game. What is your goals? That's what I always tell people. You got to figure out what you want to do. It ain't about the beekeeper down the road that tells you, well, you need to do this. Now, what is your end game?
Right.
What is your goal? And
Right.
if your
Right.
goal is to get your numbers rocking so that next year, kind of like me with my nuke plan, was a 2-year plan. I knew I wasn't going to be making 20 and 30 nukes this year. It's a 2-year plan. Your plan may be 2-year plan. And hey, that sacrifice has to be made this year. That's just
Yeah.
how it's agriculture, man. That's how it is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's funny this year. It really, I think it's the first year that before the season kind of got going, I took a step back and I, I'm a honey guy. I don't want to get into raising the bees just because I want to, when I sell whatever product it is that I'm selling, I want to sell that product and walk away. I don't want phone calls after. I don't want to have
Right.
any dealings afterwards. Honey works out. I've got a market now. There's folks that buy it, so I'm good there. So all that said, I took a step back and I'm like, yeah, I could have easily gone after the winter with what losses I had, split colonies, and recoup numbers. But then I'm thinking that's going to directly affect the honey crop that I get. So I'm just like, you know, math comes into play, and I'm like, I could spend a couple
Oh
$100
yeah, absolutely.
and easily save a honey crop and still grow because I could always, if we end up having a decent spring, I could always take those packages, grow the heck out of them, and split those too.
Absolutely. I did that. I
Yeah.
bought packages. I put them in. We got them late actually because of the weather. I put them in just after April 15th and split. It's like
Oh.
7 of them in the summer. No, split 5 of them. Showed 3 on video, and they did fine, and they came out strong this year. And matter of fact, one of them is I didn't split it, so I'm gonna try and make honey off of it. Hope it doesn't swarm. But it can easily. That's what I mean. Like you got to figure out those little tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
We're talking to Darren. He's a commercial beekeeper, and 3 years ago, before the bad year, they had about 22,000 hives, and they lost down to like 4,000 hives.
Oh my gosh.
And they ended up, when they got back for what they could get with almonds, they just split so hard. They made 2-frame splits and then made 2 more 2-frame splits as they moved them up into Minnesota, fed them, and just kept splitting them down and recouped back to 20,000 over the next year by just making thousands of queens and making 2-frame splits, 2-frame splits, 2-frame splits, and just feeding them. I mean, it just depends what you want to do and how you want to do it. But you gotta evaluate that stuff before the season and look at numbers, like you say. Math is important in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mr. Bruce, you're muted, buddy.
He's muted. We can't hear him.
You're muted on StreamYard.
He's still muted.
How about now?
There he is.
Now, right when I saw, so I'm here with Mike, and I get the little ding that Bruce joins in, and in the back of my head, when I saw that Bruce joined in, I heard this right here. You hear that? Sure. It's like I got like royalty right here. Both sides over there. It's just all royalty.
You got the Southern boys here.
You got the world famous Mike Berry.
I know. I already said that. World famous, the honorable, the beekeeper of beekeepers.
Nah, stop it. I'm just winging it, man. That's all I'm doing is winging it every day.
Yeah. What's happening, Bruce?
Oh man, just busy. Got home from work, and we actually I've got an order for 300 pints to Applin Farms that I'm trying to get bottled up. So bottles came in today, so I was working on that, and then Annette came home. She told me she was on her way home from work, and it just didn't come home. So I'm just like, I figured she went to the store or something. I'm bottling up honey, and she came in, and there's a little boy in the neighborhood when she was coming back from work. This little boy was on his bike. Excuse me. And she was concerned about him because it was a bike. He was like about a 6-year-old kid just riding through the neighborhood. He had one half of his training wheels on. He was cruising through the neighborhood down probably about pushing a half mile from our house. And so she stopped and talked to him, and he said he was going to AJ's house, whatever that means. And so she's like, well, do you know where his house is? And he really didn't. And so she kind of tried to follow him, and she was worried about him. She kept going back and checking on him. He ended up coming up. There's this kind of a steep hill behind her house. He came up and came by our house, and he was just lost. He had no idea where he was, just riding around on his bike in our neighborhood. So we went out and we kind of followed him from a distance, talked to him a couple of times, and he's just cruising around like, had no clue. He's like, I know where it is. It's just around that corner. I went the wrong way. Well, finally we followed him from a distance, and we called the police, and the police officer came. And so that kind of took a little bit of time. And then police officer showed up. I hope he's found the mom. Like he did, the kid like he was not, he's 6 years old. He doesn't know a lot of information. So
Right.
he's just completely lost. And he kept stopping, looking around, stopping, looking back at us. And thank goodness, we weren't, he was super friendly little kid. And it's just a dangerous thing. So,
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so
Wow.
and then I came back and I bottled up 50 more bottles, 48 more bottles. I ran out of honey in my tank and then ate dinner and then finally got on here. But it's been busy, and it seems like every day, something to do after work, or it's just burning the candle at both ends. It feels like, but super busy. Just as far as the bees go, they're just doing good. It's this past weekend I tried the cloak board, tried to do a cloak board setup with some grafts and stuff, and Mike, guys, I went in and I set everything up. I had a hive I thought was perfect for it, and had all everything the way I thought it needed to be. I actually took some frames from other hives on frames of brood, perfect. I thought they would be nurse bees, shook them in there, just thought I had it packed out with bees. And I went to graft. The population wasn't where I wanted it to be, but I went ahead and grafted 30 grafts. I went back out there. This is almost embarrassing. I'd had 5 takes out of 30, so that was crappy. But I just didn't, there weren't any bees in there. I don't know where all the bees went, but I set it up, tried to do everything right. So this queen rearing thing to me is just hard. I don't know why. I've only had one really successful graft, and I've tried it, 3 or 4 times. And the one I had, I got 20. I think I ended up with 20 out of 30, which was plenty. I didn't need more than that. But one of these days, I'm going to figure this thing out. I may just set up a standard starter hive, next time and just do it that way.
I think that's what you should do. The cloak board's cool. But
I don't know.
Configuration with what you're doing and pallets and bees and your time, the cloak board's fine. It really does have to be a strong colony. But I went the other way when my cloak board messed up. I went to double screen route. And then I even changed that. I talked to Greg, as a matter of fact. I called Greg and said, hey, you got some time? He's always running 100 miles an hour. You got time to chat about some queen rearing? And I think he thought I was going to pay the bill after getting that shipment from him, but I wasn't. I just want to talk about queens. And so he called me back anyway. I think he wanted his money. And we talked about it. And I actually went to just taking a strong hive and doing that, Bruce, just loading it. Because what I've learned with the queen rearing or queen grafting anyway, is that, everybody's intimidated by the actual grafting part, but that's the easiest part. The hardest part, where the first thing people do when they pull the frame up and don't see any takes, and I did it, they think, oh man, I didn't get the larva in there right. You know what? It's probably more likely 9 times out of 10, you don't have enough bees. And it's strange how to do, but you got to actually have the time to get in there and push a bunch of bees in there, and then it needs to marinate for a couple of days is what I figured out. And when it, like the cloak board, I set it up a week before I'm even thinking about grafting. I want those bees growing and brood gumming, and then I go look at it a couple of days before and add more. And this is the first season using cells. I didn't have to buy one cell. I probably made about 80 cells this year, gave a bunch away. Just put the last virgins in now, but it's because I finally just said, you know what, you got to dedicate the time to making that thing and letting it marinate for a little while. When I say a little while, only a few days. And then after that, it takes care of itself. You'll run 2 runs through there like it ain't nothing.
So you talking about cloak board, or you talking about just a standard starter?
Either way. So a standard starter, same thing, but you got to be careful with those because it depends when you're wanting to pull the queen. That's the key, is when you want to make it queenless, or you just flat out make a starter.
Yeah, the thing I like about the cloak board is, number one, you can just remove the cloak board when you're done, and they just turn into a regular colony again. They just go right back. And the other thing is, it's just less work moving the bees in and out. So one thing that happened was when I set it up, on pallets, the hives are right next to each other, and the hives, they're real close to each other on the backside. And so to turn it around and reverse the entrances, it's hard to do unless you just have a single on the behind it. It's difficult to do that. So, but I went to Sue Kobe did a well, first of all, what's his name? Matthew Walker came on here one night, year and a half ago, whenever it was, and he does the cloak board system, and he does it this way. Sue Kobe does it this way. They just do it on pallets, and they just don't reverse it, But what happened was, the bees were, it was kind of a, once again, knowing me, getting in there on like a cloudy day or whatever. So I get in them. They're pretty feisty. The one I chose was a super strong colony. I thought it was a double deep, but they're some of my more feisty bees. They weren't the ones I grafted from were super gentle right behind it, but the ones that they were on the same pallet back to back, because I thought, well, maybe I'll graft from this one. Beautiful, beautiful bees are doing really well. And then I just happened to realize, hey, this colony backed up to it is perfect. So I've just turned this into my cloakboard colony. And so but they were pretty feisty anyway. So the bees were flying all over the place. I went through, I shook the bees down to make sure they were out of the top, make sure I never saw the queen, to make sure she was down below. And I put the cloakboard on there, and probably should have just let them, like you say, marinate for a day or two like that in that configuration. I pulled brood up above like you need to have. But what I did was I went ahead and blocked the entrance. And so they'd have to go in the upper entrance, so they'd have to go up above the queen excluder.
That's right. That's just
well, but the problem is when they were all, going everywhere, how bees will sometimes climb out of the brood box and they'll be on the edges of the hive all the way around.
Yeah.
Well, when you have 4 colonies on a hive, some of those bees are not going to go back in the original hive, because there's going to be another one closer. And so what I think happened was I came back the next day to I was going to insert the plate in there. And there were bees going back and forth between that colony and the one next door to it. Some of them were going up in the entrance, but they were still confused. And that's the day I grabbed. So limited on time, I just went ahead and anyway, I think I'm going to have 4 or 5 sales out of it, but it's just hard. Queens are just so hard for me because of my time. I just don't have, it's just I want to do it. I understand. I think I graft pretty decently. I grafted fairly quickly. I felt like I was kind of in a rhythm. I felt like the cells were the right size, everything. I felt like the larvae were the right size, and I thought I did pretty good. Although I couldn't tell. I think I had them in there properly, but I do think there just weren't enough bees. I think there weren't enough bees. And so
I like that Matt fella a lot. I really do. And he's a great guy. I wanted to visit him while he was still down here. But I really take exception to that video he did and getting a big title up there that says the cloakboard method. He is not using the cloakboard method. He is using the cloakboard to raise queens how he chooses. And the reason I say that is the true cloakboard method is not done like that. It's the whole purpose why Harry Cloak designed it. And see, that's exactly what's happening is you're having issues on a pallet. Well, he figured it out because he's just got a ton of bees and he's got time. That's what he does for a living. So he's able to shake a bunch in. So that's
what Sue Kobe does that too, and she's famous.
If you truly do the cloakboard method, if you truly do it like it's designed and like on the Beekeeper Suite that I read, and you do it like that, a production hive that's strong will function and will put enough bees to do 20, possibly 30 cells for the small scale beekeeper, and that's kind of what it's made for. What they're doing is using a cloakboard similar to a double screen, but they're just taking that step of the double screen out and flipping the box. They're just using it. They're using it just like Bob Benny's double screen method that I used this year, but they're doing it with a cloakboard and excluder. That's the only difference. It's not using it like that. So I think here's the prime example. It got you all discombobulated on your palette because you're trying to do a cloakboard method, but doing it like they're doing it. And so it's really, pallets are going to make it difficult because of drift, because the entrance does need to be closed off, but it also needs to be reversed because when you go to open it again, guess what? All those field bees are going to go back to that bottom now. And the whole purpose of opening it is so when they leave the back, they come to the top front and they load the top box. So it's kind of a trick in numbers and how to bleed off the bees. But on pallets, it's difficult. You really got to pay attention to how you're doing it so you don't get drift. And I've even had drift by doing a cloakboard right next to another hive. So this year,
I saw the bees. I saw them going. Like they were coming in trying to land. They would just hit. I had a towel stuffed in the entrance, and they would just hit that, and they move around. And some of them went up and in. Some of them went due left over to the other, right next door, and they were walking back and forth across the pallet. So, and there may have been a little.
Set it up ahead of time because
I know.
Process says a couple days, but I do it a week ahead of time so that I know my bees are coming through that new entrance up top,
Yeah, I think even the way I did it, if I would have just put the cloakboard in there and just let them just calmed down for a couple of days and not even blocked it off. Just let them kind of get used to being where it was so they could get in that bottom entrance and do their thing. Because they were all agitated when I put the boxes back together. You know, they were all over the outside of the box, just hanging out, you know, like the whole box looks, you know, the bees were just hanging on, especially even between the two boxes. And then behind the box, there were bees, you know, because they all, you know, they run out when you shake them and they're agitated, they'll just run out over the top. So there were bees hanging out everywhere. So I'm pretty sure some of them went to the hive to the left of it. Some of them probably went to the hives behind it. You know, they probably just kind of delegated themselves out. Some of them were probably nurse bees that didn't know where to go. So they probably, maybe because the entrance on those pallets is kind of small and it's on a corner, on the front corner of the pallet. So I did everything probably wrong, but it's just, with me, I just can't like go back. It's just hard for me to go back and keep checking on it every couple of days. And I can't do that. If I had it in my backyard here, I could, but I moved the bees out of my backyard because of having grandkids there. And so to get a big, strong, huge colony back here, a couple of them really what you need to raise queens. It's just not really something I want to do right now. But I don't know. I'll figure it out.
His are all separated under that shed. Like he keeps separate hives. Like they're all separated on separate stands, so they're apart from each other. But then Chris Warner does a double screen. He'll do it on two-way pallets. But it's a double screen method. So you're not trying to reorient them. But most of the guys have them separated out to an extent.
Well, when you say a double screen, I know you did one on your video. What is the difference between that and the cloak board as far as, I mean, it's really the same thing.
It's the same thing, except you have to manipulate. You have to move the boxes. So the difference is with the double screen is you start with that, you move that queen above, all right, and make the bottom so that the bottom receives all the field bees and all the nurse bees that you put down there with the brood. And the queen up top? The queen's up top, right? So
okay, I see.
You bring your queen up top, and now you drop your grass down. Okay. And then when it's time to switch them, where the cloak board, it's vice versa, but you're still bleeding field bees off to the top. All you're doing with this double screen is you're keeping all your field bees in the bottom, plus what you put down in a brood, and now you're graft and a feeder. And so you feed them up and you take them out a day later, and now you take that queen box and move her to the bottom, put an excluder on, the double screen is out, and you put the cells over top. Now you have a queen right finisher. The difference is you have to do all that moving with boxes, but the result is the same.
Don't you have the same problem with bees, all the field bees going back to the bottom once you reverse the boxes?
What you want. That's what you want. So
you want the field bees out of there.
Going down there. You want them all. You want as many bees in that bottom as you can get. Even though they're older bees and they're not the ones, it keeps all your population in the bottom. Basically, I took the queen and 2 frames of brood and 2 frames of nurse bees and put her on top. Everything else was in the bottom below that double screen. So they were sitting there queenless with 90% of the population, and that's going to guarantee you 30 cells.
Well, but then when you reverse it back, you put the box that was on the bottom on the top, right?
That's right.
And the queen
back between them. Right.
So do they stay? I guess they stay up there because all the brood's up there. Is that why they don't?
Yeah,
they'll come into the bottom. They'll come into the bottom then because they're trained to go to the bottom still, right?
That's right. Because you've never changed the entrance at all. So the difference is you're never trying to retrain or reorient your bees in a double screen. So it is kind of easier. But then when I started I talked to Greg, I said, Greg, man, I'm having, because queen right finisher, you got to wait so long. What I came up with was what I did the first time I ever grafted was after 5 days after the graft, I don't even leave the queen on anymore. I don't even make it a queen right finisher. I pull them right out of the graft after 5 days after the graft, put them in the incubator and let the incubator finish them because they're capped. Incubator did at 92.5, 65% humidity, finished out every one of my cells.
Yeah, I did.
All of them.
The way I did it a couple of years ago when I had that most successful graft that I haven't done a lot. I've only done like probably 4 or 5 grafts in my entire life, maybe 4, maybe 5 total. But what I did was I had a Apamase 7 frame that I had it loaded with brood bees, just packed out bees, almost couldn't get the lid on kind of a thing. Fed them, did all the things, dropped my graft in there. And them when the sales were capped, I went out there. I grafted on a Saturday, I think, and went out there on Wednesday, and I put the little easy peasy covers on them and just left them in that queenless colony, queenless hive. and it worked perfectly. They all turned out okay. I was just using the bees as the incubator, but I guess as long as the bees can't get to them, they can't break them down.
And that's the problem is when you leave them on the hive, the queenless one, they tend to start tearing them down. But if you yank them or do what you did, the nice thing about yanking them is you can get a second run out of that queenless colony. I actually ended up moving the queen off to a whole other stand. And then when I was finally done grafting, I just left one cell in there, and I checked today and there's a queen in there. So, you know,
that's what I would probably do.
It really worked out a lot better. I made more queens that way. And but there's different ways. But to me,
I just gotta. To me, it's all the timing. Just taking the time to do it.
I tell you this, Bruce. One thing I will say: retirement actually got me a better production on queens. So don't beat yourself up, because
I know
I was struggling. I was making them, but I was always buying just to make sure, and I was making them. But when I had the time to set everything up in February the way I should have, and get in there and actually do it and have my timing right, because I wasn't going to work that day. So don't beat yourself up because
I'm not. It just aggravates me that I can't. So here's a question for you in the queen rearing. If you just, whatever the setup is, whatever it is, obviously you want to get it. Just say, okay, let's just say a starter hive. Don't worry about the cloak board. Don't worry, none of that. Just a straight up starter hive. Pack it out with bees. You want it loaded up with brood bees. You want pollen in there. You want to have plenty of food resources. How long you think you need to leave that in there for a couple of days before you introduce the graft? Let them get kind of used to being in there together. Is that what you recommend?
On that particular one, I'd leave them in there just a day and 2 days. Yeah.
Okay. So what about the cloak board / double screen board?
If I'm doing the cloak board, now double screen, you can do it like a starter finisher, really.
Okay.
But the cloak board, I set mine up about 4 days ahead of time, because I also don't want all that brood coming out, but I want at least 2 to 4 days of those bees coming through that top entrance when I block that bottom.
Well, now that brood coming out, those are nurse bees, right? So those are actually good bees to have in there.
Yeah, but you've also split your hive. You don't want them zipping down to the bottom. But yeah, you're going to maintain most of them up there. But like the young nurse bees like to be on larvae, and you don't want a ton of larvae in the top because emergency cells. But you haven't split it yet. So I didn't mind like 2 days this time, 2 or 3 days, and boy, those bees. And of course, the bottom was reversed and blocked, so they had to come through that cloak board entrance. And now, by 2 days, they were rolling. I didn't lose that much brood, and I dropped my graft in.
I got you. I'm not beating myself up. I just want it to work on my time schedule, and the bees don't care about my time schedule. So I don't know. I'm gonna go back out there and check on them either tomorrow evening or Friday, and they may all be torn down. Who knows? But the hive doesn't look near as strong. I think what happened is a lot of those bees just went in the different hive when I blocked off the entrance. There were some going in the upper entrance, but it wasn't. They weren't all going up there by any stretch. So I think I just lost a bunch of bees to other hives when I did that. But anyway. It's live and learn. I'll figure it out one of these days. And like you say, I think when I do retire and I have more time, it'll be better. But I made splits. I think it was almost like 2.5 weeks ago now. I had 30 cells from Tyler Walker, and I went back and peeked in on them. They've been there 2 weeks this past Saturday, and there were a few that didn't take, but probably 70%, 75% of those took, and so it's not like I don't have any bees. Not like I really need more queens. The ones that didn't take, I think I'm just going to drop them into 10 frame boxes and combine them, just stick them together with the ones that did and didn't, and let them, kind of grow together. And just, I think I've been crazy this year. I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. I've got some, I put together some OAE extended release towels. I actually purchased the towels already ready to go, but I didn't have I mixed up the oxalic acid from Mike's Easy Ox, and with the glycerin, I've got 600 of those ready to go. So that's enough for 150 hives at 4 per colony at 12.5 grams. So I got to try and figure out that. Going to be putting on honey supers. I've started putting a few on. That's the next video. I just started working on that one today. I put on a honey super or two, like on some of them, the ones that were super strong. But then I went and peeked in on some of them this past weekend. I didn't have a lot of time in the bees this past weekend. And I'll be darned if those jokers, like the ones that have been weaking up, I didn't put any supers on. Now they're ready. I mean, they are just ready. So I got to start adding, because, we're about to, privet's going to be blooming here soon. I've already seen some tulip poplar blooming. So I think
here.
I think the tulip poplar is a little bit early. The privet's not blooming yet, but it's going to be blooming real soon. So, usually it's a little bit later in April, I think, when it blooms, but I think we might be a little bit ahead this year, which is kind of weird to me. But I've tried to do everything real methodically and with a plan this year. And I've done a lot, but I don't know that I've done enough.
It's hard.
I don't know how I can do more. I mean, what really kind of set me back was last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. We went up to visit my daughter and son-in-law up in North Carolina at Fort Bragg. He's about to be deployed over wherever he's going. He can't tell us, but I imagine it's the Middle East. And so we went up to visit them. I really needed to be doing some stuff. So the previous, I think all week leading up to that, I was out there till dark every night doing something, So, and then Friday, I actually have Friday off because we left on Saturday, and all day I went Saturday from 6 a.m. until dark, basically. I mean, so I'm just
I do got
enjoy
45 supers on, Bruce.
Huh?
I already got about 45.
Oh, I got way more than that, but I've got way more colonies. I got a lot,
but you got a lot more colonies. I only got 80.
Yeah.
And there's actually 2 or 3. I say no. There's about 5 or 6 full supers that they're starting to cap of blackberries. Were wild this year.
Yeah, they're just starting. But I split mine pretty hard, so they're just starting to put a little bit of nectar in this past weekend now. The blackberries / dewberries, I've got to be sure and say dewberries because I called them blackberries and people got on me a few weeks ago, and I didn't know the difference. I thought to me they all look like blackberries. The berries are the same, they taste the same, they look the same. But I said blackberries and people were like, "Nope, those aren't blackberries; those are dewberries." I'm like, okay, so I have in some of my areas I have dewberries and blackberries in the same place, right? Maybe next to each other. So anyway, those are blooming. I think they're probably about done blooming. And that's over in Midland City is where most of those are. And that bee yard is doing really well. Hasn't been one of my stronger bee yards, but man, I pulled 2 splits out of some of those and they just it hardly even, they're just regrouping like crazy. So I think the fact that we pulled splits early like that, and then some of them I pulled 2 splits, even though it weakens them dramatically when you do it early, they have time to catch back up. Now, most of them have a second box on there that I put foundation on basically, and I pulled a frame or 2 up from the brood box. And most of those are drawn almost completely out. The foundation is, and now they're just primed and ready for honey. And some of the really super strong ones, Mike, you saw some of those like in Slocum that were really, especially the super strong deep medium combinations I have. I put a box of foundation and then I put a box of comb on top of that, for the honey, for them to hopefully dry out some of that foundation. So here's a question I have for both of you guys. So wanted to see how you guys do this. I know there's many ways to do this as everything else with bees, but starting off with you, Brian, if just say, for example, you have there's 2 scenarios. Number 1, you're a brand new beekeeper and you don't have drawn comb. You just, your bees have worked up into a double deep. Maybe it's your second year with bees, but the first year they didn't make honey. Now you want to make honey. How do you introduce the honey supers and get them to draw that out? Second question is, if you do have drawn comb, but you need to get more foundation drawn out and you have some empty frames, how do you get that drawn out? So what do you think, Brian? What's your strategy for doing that to get new foundation drawn out?
Feed them.
Well, if you're trying to make honey, do you want to feed them syrup in your honey supers?
Well, so what I've done is, like, if you watch them, and if I want them to build out comb, typically what I've done in the past is I'll checkerboard some, but you got to watch out because it all depends on the flow and depends on the situation. I've done it before. I've checkerboarded frames in, and we had such a heavy flow the one summer that they literally it was so fast coming in that they did not play with drawing any comb out, just because it was like you turned on fire hoses to this small little area and they were just slapping it wherever they could. And if you did checkerboard, you ended up with these frames that were so fat and they barely even touched the others. So it's like a fine line. I mean, like, Usually what I will do the first year is feed the all out heck out of them and get them to draw frames and just keep switching out. Like I've got a rack inside of my honey house where, first year, if they're drawing out some frames, I'll pull frames and slap, uh, bare foundation in with them to get them to draw them. It's a fine line though. I mean, because you've got to make sure you have a decent flow.
It is a challenge. It's part of the art of the beekeeping.
It is, and there's an art with getting foundation drawn out, and exactly like there's an art to queens. Like right now, I've already switched out some of my frames and my supers that are on. I put bare foundation in them because we're starting to get that trickle of a flow coming in. I've got 1-to-1 syrup on them, so they're gonna draw comb out.
Those your honey supers or your honey supers? Okay, yeah.
Now I've only got a deep and one medium on, but that medium that's in there, I've already got some empty foundation in there, so that they'll start working it, drawing it out. Now, the one thing that I have to my advantage also, where I'll get decent frames drawn out, is right now I do not have excluders on, and I do have some brood in that super. So I slap frames, that I'm going to eventually use in honey supers. I slap them in between those brood frames. That way they draw that nice comb out. They're not going to, you're not going to get those fat frames when you're throwing empty foundation frames between brood. So there's an art to it and there's a trick to it. You just have to time it out right. You cannot wait. If you're being more reactive to the flow, you're late.
Mike, what about you? How do you address the new foundation now that you've expanded and grown? How are you going to be drawing out new foundation for honey purposes?
It's funny you ask, because I just did that, but I do believe if you go back to being a beginner, what you first asked is one of those deals where you do need to know your flow and understand what's going on. Because where Brian is talking, I agree with everything Brian said, but where he's at and where I'm at are totally different places. Where I can have a small flow coming in right now. Like I say this all the time in my videos, we have a little tiny flow. It's enough coming off the red maple and dewberry and blackberry. I was the same way, Bruce, and I got corrected by looking it up. I had to humble myself in front of our beekeepers meeting and say, guys, I know I was wrong. It is dewberry. There's a southern dewberry. But no, anyway, so that little bit of flow coming in, they won't draw that comb with that. And like he said about checkerboard, and I hear that thrown around so much about just checkerboard. And man, that is like, you can get into so much trouble with that if the flow is too heavy or it's too light or whatever. But my challenge this year was, especially with expanding, was, okay, I've got a bunch of deeps. I had like 25 deeps that needed to go on. And at about 15 or 16, I ran out of drawn comb. So what I did, I put 4 drawn and 6 undrawn, and I put the 4 in the middle. When I ran out of, and look, some of the bees growing good that I split down good and hard, the queen came up and put eggs in those, and they're putting brood. Other bees that were a little bit stronger threw a bunch of nectar in there, because a stronger colony during a moderate flow will bring in plenty of nectar and draw, where a small one won't. So she was busy growing in those 4. The stronger one was busy packing it with nectar and drawing out frames on the other side. Those are the ones where I would move 1 in the middle or 2 in the middle next to those drawn ones at that point. So that's kind of how I did it. And I also, I like to bring up at least 2 frames from the bottom, preferably brood, bring them up to that top one with the foundation. I don't like to split the brood until it's at least mid-April. I don't like to spend, I saw Ian popped on here, but I remember that years ago, he talked about that, configuring a box. Don't split that brood nest. Of course, he's colder in the spring than we are, but I take that to heart. And I had a commercial beekeeper from North Dakota just say it the other night, don't split that brood until a certain time. And when you do, only split it, with 1 frame at a time, just like you said, Brian, where they don't draw it all giant. But that's what I do. I just try to bring some up, maybe 2 frames, in some cases more, depending on how packed they are, drop some foundation on the edges and the bottom, and put the foundation on the outside and let them. They'll draw it.
Are you talking
got to have a flow. But
you talking about particularly brood particular or honey supers?
Now, honey, honey supers. I don't
How do you
use an excluder.
How do you do your honey supers to get them drawn out?
I first of all, I lay 10 in there unless it's a super big flow. If it's a super big flow, I will do 9 and get them drawn. But with honey supers, I tell you, the flow has to be hitting, and that's where a newer person has to understand their area and when the flow is hitting.
Mm-hmm.
When the flow is hitting, I'll stick it on there with foundation only. It's going to go right over there, and it's not going to have an excluder. And it's a chance you take, but that excluder is going to slow those bees down on that foundation. I honestly believe and I've heard it said by folks more experienced than me, that it can cause them to push them right out the box and put swarm cells in. So I don't use an excluder. And honestly, I don't use an excluder much anyway, because I just stink at timing it out right. But yeah, just right over the brood nest.
What? Go ahead, Brian.
When I filmed the other day, one of the things that I was talking about was managing your frames and like your bee spacing and everything. And the one sign that I saw that it told me right there by looking in that, okay, it's time that I can drop down some empty frames just to get them to start working, is I still had my shims on. Okay. And I knew I had to take them off. So I knew, I'm like, we're going to have weather. It's going to be warming up to the point where, we're going to start to have Mother Nature providing for the colonies. So I knew, plus I was getting syrup on them. And I thought, they're going to flip the switch one day, and I'm going to go over there and I'm going to have a mess all on top of those boxes. Very first colony that I popped open, I had a couple little startings of comb on top of the frames, and I looked and I thought, okay, I caught it in time. And then there was one about 2 or 3 colonies later where they had huge strips of, it was, pretty much from the top of the frames clear through the shim up to my migratory lid, where it was just these huge, just patterns of comb. And they're not going to be building that out if there's not enough of a little flow out there. They've got syrup on them. Things are right. There's multiple factors that go into that. But when I saw that, I thought I caught it just in time.
Yeah, I think, and I think brood management is different, because in brood, you're not trying, you can feed the heck out of them. You can just get them drawn out, whatever you got to do. And there's different methods. And I've done what Mike says, where you keep the brood all in the middle. That's what most people do. I've also taken a really packed out Tim for this is crazy. I did an experiment one time where I took a really packed out Tim frame, and I wanted to add a second box. And so I brought Tim frames with the new box, and I checkerboarded both boxes. Like I just took one out, left a brood in the bottom, took a brood next to it out, put the foundation there, moved the brood up, and I checkerboard them like that all the way across the box. In the springtime, or when it starts to warm up, you do that down here, and they will feel the whole thing will be drawn out like in a week and a half, and the queen will be laying in those new frames. Now, if you do it in February, you're in trouble, because it's going to be too cold. The brood will get cold, and the bees can't cover it. But when it comes to honey supers, I've played around with different things, and what I found is, and this is something that works for me. And I learned this principle actually from Tim Ives. He's up in Indiana. He runs these massive, he called them mega hives. I call them mega hives, 3 deep system they're stacked up 11, 12 boxes high. And what he does is he says he checkerboards boxes, not frames. So what he does when he wants to draw out empty foundation is he'll put wherever the top level of his brood is, and in him is 3 deeps, 2 to 3 deeps, usually it's 3 deeps. He'll put the first frame, the first box on top of that will have foundation, and then he stacks comb on top of that, boxes of comb. He'll stack it up 2 or 3 boxes of comb on top of that in a big flow with those big powerful hives. And his principle, his belief is, and I saw this to be true, is that foundation will serve as a queen excluder. Rarely does that queen ever go above that foundation. And then now what happens though is, as many of you know, when those bees start to draw out comb, the first thing they do is she'll start laying. She loves laying in that freshly drawn out foundation. Sometimes even before the cells are completely drawn out, you see eggs in there. She loves that. So as soon as you started to see that, then what he would do is, and I did this too. You would move it up, and then you put another box of foundation in it. So I don't run 3 deep system anymore. I don't have those kind of big boxes. So what I usually do when I'm starting my honey flow is, if it's a reasonably strong colony, even a double deep, when I'm trying to get my honey supers out, I like those bees to work the honey supers where they have foundation or comb in them. I like the bees to start working it, cleaning it out without a queen excluder. Let the bees get up there and start working it, get their smell on it, get it cleaned out, start putting nectar in there. Occasionally, the queen will start laying a little bit in there, but I like to get the bees up there. On the really big, super powerful double deeps, what I did this time, and even some of the ones that were deep in the medium, if they were just packed out with bees, I went ahead and put a box of foundation on top and then a box of comb on top of that. We'll see how they look when I go out there this weekend and kind of peek in on them. But what I find is the bees tend, and it's a box, I always put 10 frames of foundation in that box of empty foundation, in that box of, new foundation. And I find, because if you spread them too far apart, there's gonna be wonky comb everywhere. No matter how good their wax is, there's 8 or 9 frames in a 10 frame box. It can be a problem. So you want them to be mashed together, pushed together. And so that's how I do it. I use it that way. I let the bees usually walk across those frames, get up to the top box. They'll start putting nectar in the top box and hopefully drawing out the middle box because they don't like that space to be in between. It doesn't always work, but it usually does. And then I'll let them work for a couple or 3 weeks, and then I come back and I make sure the queen is not above. I'll shake the bees out or whatever, and then I'll slide a queen excluder in there. And the bees, once I've done that, Mike, when I do that, it seems like the bees, they don't skip a beat. They're already been up there working, and so they just go right through that queen excluder because they have stuff up there they're tending to. And
I get that.
And you guys have probably seen too on my videos how I've started staggering above the queen excluder. I make sure there's some sort of an entrance or some sort of a ventilation. I'm not sure it's ventilation or entrance, but I stagger the boxes a little bit so the bees can get airflow. And you see them out there fanning and tending that. They love it when you do that. So, but that's how I do it. I've had a lot of success doing that over the years, but sometimes they still don't want to draw that box of foundation out completely. They'll have the middle frames will be drawn out on the outside. They kind of stop because they want to get up to that comb, especially, Mike, like you said, in a fire hose type of a flow. Ryan and Mike, you said that when it's really coming in strong, they sometimes they won't. They'll just walk right over that foundation to get up and pack it in the drawn comb already. But it's another way,
what flow issue.
Gus Mitchell, what he did, and I've done this and it works pretty well too, is he'll just take a couple of frames, like 2. I've seen Cayman do this a little bit differently, but Gus will take, if I'm not mistaken, he takes 2 frames of foundation right in the middle of the box of comb, and everything else is comb, and they'll fill that out like it's not even a second thought. That works too if you just can do that as well. But then when I'm ready to actually start packing honey, and I like to get them out into 9 frames, 8 or 9, even 8 frames. I've got 8 frame spacers and a 9 frame spacer. And boy, those 8 frame boxes, when you have a 10 frame box with 8 frames in it, man, those are awesome to harvest those things because they're so fat. They work really well. But those are just a few things I do.
I think the thing what you said is key about a flow, though, Bruce, and that's the thing is like there's times we've had tallow and I've seen it blooming as big as can be, but there was no nectar coming in off of it, and like then they won't touch the foundation near as much. And I do what you do. True. Like today, I shook one below an excluder because she'd already started up there. I said, okay, well they're up here now. I shook them below. But most of the time, the reason I don't do that is because I'm just too lazy. And if she's only got about 3 frames in there, I really don't care in April. Because 9 out of 10 times when the tallow hits in May, when that emerges, they're backfilling it anyway. So I've got to where I kind of look at it. But like this is early enough now where, okay, wait, I can pull some privet on this. Let me get her below the excluder now. But, that foundation rule of being an excluder, I learned that years ago and tried it. And it does work. But, like you say, they'll get up in there sometimes. And if you shake them back down, you're just fine. And something else, like you said about the space, the air or the ventilation. I saw that. I tried that one year, and it's again, it goes back to me being lazy. I just don't like popping them loose and breaking them and doing that. But I started doing like I'll do top openings, like I'll open the top. And I saw Bob Benny do that one time where he said, he goes, I'm telling you, I really believe that keeps them from swarming, or helps them with the swarm urge. And I was like, if he says it, I'm going for it, right? So I pop the lids now, and I get them. And what's cool about it is kind of like what you say with the ventilation method. You'll see those bees up there all over that, and they
love it. They love it,
and they come up there. And I've always been taught it helps them ventilate as far as air moving through, not because they can't ventilate and they're not thermally smart. It's because they can they can dry the honey faster that way. And I've always heard that. So very similar to what you're talking about, but I think it has so much to do with the flow, even putting those 2 foundations in the middle, because I'm gonna tell you now, talking about 8 and 9 frames, I've run 9 frames except for my foundations. But I did a video about 2 years ago, and I showed that during a heavy tallow flow, I could stick 10 frames, 9 frames in a 10 frame box and draw them all out evenly. And I did it on a single, and I put an excluder down, and I never put an excluder with foundation, and they were kicking, man. Like this thing was rocking. Now it has to be a super strong colony, and it has to be a super strong flow. And I'll be darned if they didn't draw them all out. Now that's a one-off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you say, you'll have one that's this big, and you'll have one that's nothing on it and all. But I always tell people 10 frames.
Yeah, for getting it drawn out. People earlier were talking about how they love fat frames, and fat frames are great as long as there's not a foundation frame in the middle of them. You got to pull out between them, then you're in trouble, because then it's just a mess. You got 2 frames that are that thick, and the one in the middle has nothing drawn on it. Right. And so to get that frame out, you try to pull them out and they all scrape. You got to pull out several at a time, and it just, you want them to be drawn out evenly and not something in between that's going to break right through that honey when you draw them out, pull them out. So when I talk about, if you watch my videos this year, I'll probably talk about it again, or you can go back to my videos last year. When I stagger those boxes, when I put them on is when I do that. Like if I put one, I usually kind of stack them. I don't stack them all up at once. Typically I'll stack one up, and I'm just checking them until all my boxes are out. I'm checking them every week, kind of going by. That's really what I'm about to be in the mode of doing now. Mostly is just managing honey supers here within the next couple of weeks. But when I stack them up, the first box that goes on, usually I put, once the queen excluder's on, I'll put a stick or something under the lid so they have that ventilation up there, because I don't have a second box to create that ventilation. But then the second box that goes on, I put it forward just a little bit, so there's about a quarter of an inch in the back, just enough for, and then if I go more than 2 boxes above that, the next one I stagger back. And so I do it as I stack them up, so I'm not going in there and shifting them around very much. Once I stack them, man, I rarely go into the brood box for a couple of months. I'm pretty much just managing honey supers unless I detect a problem.
Oh, yeah, I never go in there once the honey super.
But I think Gus Mitchell did. I think Gus Mitchell does that. I know that.
It was Gus that did it. He was the one that showed me by that.
And the guy up in North Alabama, I can't think of his name. I'm not even sure if he's doing bees anymore. Randall Carter did that. And then there's a commercial guy here in Alabama that doesn't have a YouTube or anything, but he also does that. And man, I think it helps. I really think, and like you say, I don't know that they even use it as an entrance, but I think it just helps them manage the flow of the air to help cure the honey quicker or something. But they do. They just love it, man. They really do. So
I did it a couple years in a row. I did it like you. I stacked them like that, but I put them on. So I started putting my supers on the 3rd week of March now on the hives. I wasn't splitting and all. And then that's when I kind of got away from it. And I probably need to go back to it, because you're right. It did definitely, like, the bees loved it. Like, they would be right on those, and it would just be so full. But so I started cracking the tops, and it seems. And
the cracking the tops is the same principle. I mean, it's the same principle, but for sure.
I don't know. I've done it both ways. I might have done some of them last year actually that way, just doing it because it seemed like the right thing to do.
So dropping back, and I kind of say you're a new beekeeper, kind of for the folks on here that might be new, or even for the more experienced people that have a new colony, and they just, like, say you buy a kit. Say you just buy a kit from whoever, Greg Burns, just will throw him out there, a kit that has 2 deeps, 2 mediums, a bottom and a lid with all the frames. You get your package or you get your nuke, you put it in there, they build up, fill out a whole single deep, and you want to go and get honey that first year, for example. So maybe now you decide, I want to dry out a honey super. So what I typically do is when it's about 80 to 90% full of bees, everything's drawn out in the bottom box, that's when the next box needs to go on. If I wanted to draw out a honey super, then would you guys both just kind of put that next box on there with 10 frames in it? If that's going to be your first, whether it's a double deep or a single, when your first honey super that goes on, you don't have any comb that's drawn. You just put that right on there and let them draw that out. Brian, you said you feed them to get it drawn out a little bit. Mike, is that kind of what you do too? I guess I think you kind of answered that, but I'm trying to kind of get in my brain.
I did it, but it's
what you would tell your beginner beekeepers when they want to try and get a honey crop as soon as possible.
If they want to get a honey crop, I tell them to put it on there. Because and it gives back to the flow. I'd say, where's our flow sitting? And if it's sitting at like May, I'd probably go ahead and let them do an excluder as well, even though it's foundation. Because if the flow is fast enough, they will go through the excluder, no problem. But if it's just a trickle, they're going up there in that brood unless there's a really solid honey dome. But I can't see a gangbuster brand new queen staying in a single with no excluder, staying in that single and not crossing that honey dome. I just don't see it. I think she's going to go up there. They're going to draw it out, and she's going to have eggs in it.
It's just so tricky though when you put an excluder on. They don't, and that particular colony doesn't like to go through an excluder. Some don't care, but some of them it's just like, man, they'll, like you said, they'll almost swarm before they go through an excluder. Some bees, it seems like, but
they need that flow to push them through. And if they've got a good flow, they'll push through it. But again, it's and again, we're going back and saying a single with a beginner. I'd look at them and go,
probably go double deep.
Go double and get it built. But unless you don't mind shaking them back down. So that'd be the other option, is put it on there, shake them back down, and throw an excluder in. But
anyway, we've kind of beat that dead horse. I just thought it was kind of, I know it's something people are looking at, right now or very soon. So I thought it'd be a good thing to kind of address. Maybe folks can gain a little bit of ideas from that. And I haven't been looking at the comments too well, but I'm sure folks have been commenting on that as well in the comments. So, okay, that was my contribution.
Like for my colonies though too, when I feed them, like they're going to have buckets on them now, and I'm going to feed them for, those buckets are going to stay on, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever it is, but they eventually they just stopped taking it. You'll know. I mean, when to take it off. I'll usually in the spring, if we get into a decent flow, I'll usually give them that one bucket and then just kind of judge how things are. By reading your frames though too, because the other day when I pulled frames in my deep just so that I could, I got a drone frame in and then I got another infinity frame in. That way I could just get them to start shifting towards those. There was no nectar in the brood area. So it's those type of signs too that you can monitor. You can watch your colonies and kind of judge by the signs of what you see. And that'll tell you what to do. If there's nothing coming in, they're not drawing anything out, feed them. If there's a lot coming in, if they're backfilling brood areas, well, you've got a heck of a flow coming in. If they're starting to backfill, add some space, throw boxes on, and they'll draw it out.
Yeah. Hey, Ian had a great comment about, we're just talking about the flow as if it's strictly for honey production, but he had a good comment there. Maybe throw that up there. He said the honey flow is more than bees. It's also facility. Got to build out the equipment. And that is so true. I mean, it's utilized for, we all think, hey, the flow's here. Let's maximize honey production. Well, it also, you got to get your equipment drawn out, and feeding them helps with that. But during a good flow, you can draw out a lot of the equipment. Everything is just better when there's a nice flow going on in the springtime, when the birds are chirping and the bees are buzzing and they're bringing in that nectar, and you can smell. You walk in the bee yard, everybody's happy. The beekeeper's happy. The bees are happy.
It's
about a 2 to 3 month period of time here, and that's about it. The rest of the year, it's like just fighting each other. It seems like, but
it's
so nice.
Dreadful heat.
When you said the birds are chirping, literally in my darn video on Friday, I'm sitting there and you could just hear the birds chirping. And I say that right in the video. I'm like, in the springtime, you can just sit back and you can watch the activity in front of the colonies. You can sit and listen to the birds chirping. I say that right.
Absolutely, man. I love pulling up in the bee yard, and when you got quite a few colonies in one spot, especially in a certain time of the day, in the kind of maybe say in the mid-afternoon to late afternoon, and you pull up there and that sun's starting to go down. You just see them out there flying around, and then you hear them buzzing. You get out of your truck or whatever, hear them buzzing, and then you just you can smell the honey coming in. It's just like, it's just a unique smell. It's just incredible. And then you got the birds chirping and everything in the background. It's just so everything is in symbiosis and everything's perfect. Everything's just nice. But that is, like I said, that's about Mike. That's about 3 months of the year down here, isn't it? And then the rest of the time, it's like
miserable.
it's like you're fighting each other. There's, you got to treat for mites, or you got hive beetles to fool with, or oh man, it's just. But I guess it's probably that way everywhere. But
this
boy,
week
there's
has been incredible with the weather.
Yeah.
Have you guys had that? It's been in the 70s and 60s. It's been gorgeous to work.
It's been beautiful. Yep. I've been at work, so.
I've been out. I can't say it. I was out there at 11 o'clock this morning in the short sleeve and a veil, going, "Wow, man, this is awesome."
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
I tell you, when I was messing with the bees, dropping those frames and stuff, it hit 80 degrees, and we set a record. That day it set a record, and I think we broke the hive by like 6 degrees or something like that. Like, it was an abnormally warm day for April. And I said, after I was about 2.5, almost 3 hours with what I did, and when I walked away, and I had a change of clothes. Like, I keep a pair of pants hanging in the honey room. So, I wear shorts over and then I change. Now, gone are the days, Mike, where I'm wearing shorts out the yard anymore.
Yeah.
I don't do that no more, But after I got done and changed, I just thought it's just way too early to have 80s, because I hate it when it's 80 degrees and you've got all that stuff on and you're working bees. I hate it.
Yeah. That's why it's nice. Like, I had to work them nukes today, get some nukes ready to deliver, and it was nice to be able to go out there. And except for that one I shook and they just tore my neck. I got to go to the dermatologist tomorrow for my quarterly skin cancer thing, that check on me and all. And she's going to be appalled when she starts looking through and everything, going, "What is that?" And I'm going to have to finally tell her, "Man, that's just bees." But outside of that one getting ugly, man, it's so nice to be out there in a veil and t-shirt and it's 70 in the middle of the day. Yeah. It's gorgeous.
I'll tell you, I did notice though. Now, the last time I was over there, I mean, yeah, they were worked up because we were in between storms, and we had a nasty cold front net coming into. So we dropped that day from when we were around 80, we dropped like 44 degrees in like a 12-hour period. So, oh yeah, I mean, we like dipped hard. But before that, it had been a couple days that I had, a couple days prior, I was over there, and where the bees were at me in my videos. I mean, I'd have a good 30 or so just steady ping in my face.
And Bruce, has yours calmed down?
Oh yeah, they're a lot better.
Mine too.
So that one I tried to
between storms, O'Brien.
That one I tried to set up for the cell starter. That thing's pretty spicy. There's a few that are still pretty spicy, but most of them are really so much better right now.
Mine were getting a little bit better from like how they were coming out of the winter prior to the last time. Now, it was just a sunny day. We were upper 60s, close to 70. There were no storms, and they were all pretty darn good. I was popping lids just to check and see, and I wasn't even using any smoke, just to check and see how they were as far as pollen patties. And it's like you crack a lid and you're looking, and I mean, they were to the point where you could sit there and like lay your hand across the top of them and stuff, and they were good. So, but we'll get there, and they'll mellow out. I mean, we're coming out of the winter. Our weather's been so up and down around here that this next stretch of weather that we have, and then we're going to have Mother Nature, we're going to dandelions. I bet in the next probably 3 or 4 days, you're going to see the dandelions and then like maples and that really starting up here, and the colonies are going to be happy.
Well, that's our thing in February, man. Like, they all think my bees are like Bruce's bees because they get that February roll, and it's like Bruce. And in that last video when I was out there helping them, like, everybody's like, "Wow, those bees are tough. They're tough." Well, first of all, it's February, and like you said earlier, Brian, or maybe when you and I were talking earlier, you start cracking those boxes for the first time in the winter, that stirs them up. We were working bees in the rain at Bruce's. I mean, goodness gracious, what? And honestly, Bruce, when we got done and started just evaluating those particular queens with Greg, those bees calmed way down
Yeah, they
just by
did.
getting them kids
We weren't
off.
slinging frames around and doing splits and
Right.
throwing queen
So
excluders in. We weren't doing all that stuff. So
everybody's all like, "Oh, your bees." One guy said, "Those are some pretty mean genetics." I'm like, "No, they're not. Just it's the time of year, the camera.
Yeah.
Trust me. Wait about a month, and you're going to see how calm they are."
Yeah. You just have to
Not
know.
all of them, but you know.
I tell people too, I'm like, you know, if anybody is ever asking about the bees, I tell them, I'm like, okay, yeah, well, they were angry the other day because it literally downpoured rain for like an entire day, and we had like a 4-hour window before the next system come through, and I'm over there cracking lids because I had to do things.
Yeah, they know
They
that.
do not want messed with. You know?
I don't know if it's barometric pressure, the sun's not out. You know, when the sun's not out, nectar's not flowing. When nectar's not flowing, they're not out. The windy and cool, in between storms, barometric pressure's changing. Those bees know, and they're going to eat you up because they're like, we're all home, and we don't care for you to be here.
Yep.
So anyway, folks, before we move on, if you look over there at the logo that Castle Hives, the logo right there beside it says 6.99K subscribers. So that means he is within 10 of 7,000. So if
I'm
you haven't
closer to that.
it says 6.99. So you're within 10, right? You're probably within 5. You might be within 1. So if you haven't subscribed, go down there and hit that subscribe button. It'd be great if we could push him over 7K during this live.
Oh, well, 1
away. Okay, if you haven't subscribed to Brian's channel, now's your chance. Let's hit that subscribe button.
What if I unsubscribe and subscribe again? Will that count?
Well, I mean, considering you're world famous, carry a weight of
so right now he's at 6,999 subscribers. He just needs 1 more. So if you haven't had a chance to subscribe, go ahead and hit that for him and get him over that mark. Also hit the like button. There's not enough likes on this video, so we gotta do that. Anyway, just a little shameless plug for you there, Brian.
There you go. I appreciate it.
Did you get it? You got 7 now?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway,
let me see. I'll have to check it. Not sure. I mean, if Mike does that, it would carry a weight of like 10.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
When you're world famous and you do things like that, YouTube takes into consideration. They're like, man, this guy's time is so valuable.
Yeah,
he is
sure
the honorary beekeeper of beekeepers, world famous. You know, so by having him click buttons, they're like,
what a contrast. I'm either world famous or I'm white trash. I don't know.
Oh man, did it hit 7? It did. Look at that.
There you go.
7K.
All right, do your little thing, Brian. Make your little confetti go up. What do? Your thumbs.
Oh, which one is it? Is it this?
There you go. Yeah.
I got this one. What's that one do?
Is that the balloons? Oh no, that's the fireworks. Look at that. I like it. I appreciate
Great job. Appreciate y'all for doing that. Brian, Brian and Mike both have phenomenal channels. And if you haven't subscribed to them, I'd recommend you do. Brian does a great job up there in Ohio, but he's just, he's the backyard guy that has, like most people out there, honestly, are similar to Brian as far as hobby beekeepers and just, 20 or so colonies, 10 to 20 to 30 colonies. And
don't you curse me like that.
And so, but the thing I like about your channel, Brian, is that you really explain everything you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And, Mike, you're the same way. Of course, Mike, don't ever say that Mike is telling you how to do anything, because he's not. He's telling you how he does it. But in doing that, you can learn some things that'll help you.
Yeah.
And so both of these guys, if you haven't subscribed to their channels, you need to go do that. But and they're totally different styles, but both very effective. And so don't hesitate to jump in there and watch their videos. I learn stuff from both of you guys. One thing about Mike, though, is, Mike, you're right there, just almost directly west of me, about the same latitude, very similar. And so we might be a few days off here or there, but we're seeing a lot of the same things. We have a lot of the same flows about the same time, and actually manage bees in a similar fashion. You do some things a little bit different than me, but we have a similar style. A lot of our boxes look kind of the same. Getting a little bit older, but we're getting newer ones. We're getting newer ones too, though, with Greg's stuff going on. So.
I just got a pallet from him a week and a half ago. Got another pallet delivered.
Honestly, you could almost take our boxes and interchange them, and you would never know the difference, because they look a lot alike. But
we just like ventilating our bees.
That's right. They like those extra entrances. However, mine are, my deeps for sure are getting nicer since I'm kind of beginning to incorporate more of the Endura Hive wax tip pure propolis boxes into it, and the bees love them, man. They do great. So hopefully over the time I'll be able to replace the ones that are the worst and eventually have most, if not all of them. Hives will last me for a while. But what else we want to talk about, guys? We've been going for an hour and 17 minutes. We've had a good crowd in here tonight. We've been up to like almost 160, I think, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The numbers have been good because they saw Mike was on here. When they saw Mike was on here, they said, we're going to hop on here and see what Mike's got going on.
Y'all still do a lot of questions, huh?
Yeah, there was a question actually here for.
Oh, I answered that in a text.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just said I look for the one I had this year she was actually old, and I was like, wow, this old queen. When I went in there, she was still going, man, 100 miles an hour, and so I grafted off her because she was, out of all the ones that were beating my camera up and beating me up early on, she was the only one that, when I opened their lid, they were just as gentle. And
absolutely. So
that's where I grafted from, and I think I grafted about 40 cells from her, and then another 40 from another really good laying queen that's actually a little newer, but she's got some Russian genetics in her, and I wanted those mixed in my splits.
Mike, I just thought about this. Do you use Pro Nukes? You do, don't you, for your splits and stuff?
Yeah, I do, just for my nukes when I'm selling.
So what I've been finding, and I've been splitting into Pro Nukes, and I put a lot of them into Pro Nukes, and what's happening now is we're getting up in the 80s some of these days. And I'm seeing bees bearding real bad. So it's about time to get them out of there. I'm going to be getting them out this weekend. I think as long as the population's not real big, it's not a big deal. But once they get full of bees, I think in the summertime, if they're out in the sun, now I think they'll be okay in the shade, but in the sun, I think it's worked to the point now to where I got to get them in, regular boxes.
And if you can't get them in soon enough, put a piece of plywood over top of a group.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
I've done that in when they're in the heat, the sun's catching them part of the day. I'll put that over them. But I'm usually trying to get mine out the door when they're in Pro Nukes by April 15th to May 1st.
Yeah. It's about time. So
yeah, I use plywood. That seemed to work good.
But I think they'll be really effective. I kind of fallen in love with the darn things because they're so convenient. So I think if I decide to make some more cells or whatever, or to make some more splits, I think if I want to get some queens mated in them and leave them in there for a little while, I'll just make sure they're kind of in a shaded area, or like you said, put them over, put plywood or something over them to shade them. Yes, Paul, they are for sure. The Hawaiian queens I have, my bees are just on average, it's a whole different experience. I do still have some of the old genetics bleeding through in some of my colonies, but for the most part, they are so much better on average. If you could put the nasty scale on about I don't know if they were never, to me, I think 10, is like Africanized or just below Africanized. I would say at their worst on average, my bees probably 3 or 4 years ago were maybe at about a 7.5 or 8, if even that bad. Now they're, I would say maybe about a 4 or a 5. So they're not all perfectly calm, but compared to what they were, they're so much better. And now, if you, like Mike said, if you go into them on a rainy day in February, they're not going to be nice. But whose bees are nice on a rainy day in February in Alabama? I don't know. If you get a really gentle colony on a rainy day in February, then I don't know if those bees will survive because they'll be too nice almost. You know what I mean? But I think all bees can have their days. But now with the weather much better, they've calmed down dramatically. And lots of times people get on me about this a little bit. I'm not sure if you guys experience this or not. People get on me about talking about how I move too fast or I'm rough with my bees or whatever. And I try not to be, but I've just got so much to do. I can't just calmly pull every frame out very slowly. And, I can't pet the bees one at a time as I'm doing it and be really gentle and stroke the bees and sing, songs to them and kumbaya. I've got to get after it. I got to get it done. And so sometimes admittedly, I'm a little rougher than I probably should be. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't help either. I don't want to be that way, but I just got to get the work done. And so I try to be as gentle as I can while actually being efficient at the same time. And somehow over all the years, all the comments I've had of people telling me the things I'm doing wrong, somehow I still have a couple of bees out there in some boxes that are doing pretty well. So, I try not to worry too much about it. And I hope if people, honestly, a lot of the comments people have that are a little bit negative are really actually true and good comments sometimes. And I've learned a lot from my viewers. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys have experienced that, where someone may say something negative and you kind of get a little bit defensive about it at first. It kind of makes your heart beat a little bit faster. You get a little bit, but then when you really think about it, it's like, you know what? They were probably right. And then I've actually turned my attitude around a little bit, and I've actually made a lot of changes that people suggested once I got over my pride. So
that's a big thing with pride. You get over that pride. I'll sit back. I won't answer a comment. I'll let it stew for a day or two until I really think about what they're saying, and just say, wait, no, let me back up and see what they're saying. Now, some of them are just being trolls sometimes, but very few, very, very few, one or two. But you get over your pride and go, well, what's he saying? I've learned a lot. I said, oh, wow. Like Phil Butler was like, couldn't you have just split that hive right next to it? And I'm thinking, I got home, read that comment and said, actually I could have. Why didn't I? What in the world was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why didn't I even think of that? And so I went and did it, the next day. I'm like, good job, Philip. And instead of going, well, because I didn't want to. Well,
Bug Farmer. This is so true. I know both you guys agree with this. Bug Farmer says, I have the same problem when I'm making videos. It takes me 3 times as long to inspect a hive as it does when the cameras are off. Filming adds a bunch of time to the process. Yeah, a lot of folks that don't film videos don't understand that. But yeah, you got to set up the equipment. And then when you're trying to share your thoughts with people, you slow way down, and you got to, when you're just doing it and you're going on instinct, you go a lot quicker and more efficient. But when you're trying to share what you're doing, as you guys know, then you got to kind of make sure the camera angles are good, and hopefully people can understand what you're seeing. And I try to, when I'm talking about my bees, going through them, I think you guys do a very good job of this too. I hope I do a decent job, but I try to explain what I'm seeing, even though my camera is my phone right now, and it does a pretty good job, but it as far as detail, as far as like eggs and things like that, it's not the best. And so I realize that you guys may not be able to see everything I'm seeing. But I do want to describe it so you can kind of know what I'm seeing and kind of what my thought process is. And you guys both do a great job of that. One thing I like about Mike's videos, particularly, probably as much as anyone out there, is how you just kind of walk through your whole strategy. Mike, you might be driving in your truck or standing out by your shed there, but you say, today, this is what I'm going to be doing. But you explain your thought process in detail on everything you do. And so it kind of helps me be able to think about, I can really follow what you're doing. I do that too somewhat, but I try to get in a little quicker, and I just kind of hit it, and hopefully, but I like the way that you kind of take us through you take us down all the little, but it really helps me kind of get my mind right about this is what he's thinking. And that's a good idea. Maybe I'll try that, even though you say it's not a how-to. It is it's a good exercise of understanding bee biology, why you're doing it, and how it works. And Brian, you do a good job with that too. So
yeah.
You know why that started though, Bruce? You know why that started? That started from what you were just talking about though, because I've learned, well, it started because I wanted to show average beekeepers here locally. I knew it would go worldwide if it did ever hit anything, but it was mainly for locals. And I wanted to show them, hey, how bad this is. And it's not, honey and roses all the time. But as I started getting comments, I began to go, okay, I'm going to just go almost not defend myself, almost say, all right, guys, here's what I'm doing. So you understand why it's going down before you come back and say, why did you do that? That was stupid. And you kind of have a rationale. And so what that does now is it tells me who watches the videos and who doesn't, because they go, hey, what about this? I'm like, yeah, I kind of said that back at 9.53. So that's where it came from. Is like, let me let them know ahead of time why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I know the comments I'm going to get, a lot of times.
That too. Plus, I think kind of my process is, if I was watching a video, would I understand what I'm doing? You know what I mean? If I was watching someone else, would I understand it? And so I try to,
that's part of it.
I try to say, we're going to do these 3 things. And so let me show you how I'm doing this. And I try to think about what the viewers, whether you're a first time, never even been in a beehive, you're just a lay person that's either think about it or not even maybe thinking about it, but can someone who knows nothing about bees watch this video and get something out of it, as well as the person who's been doing bees for a while and understands a lot of the things? Can everyone get something out of this? And I'm trying to kind of explain everything I'm seeing and kind of walk through that process. And, it's like, and this is a weird probably not even really a correct analogy, but you know, like parables, for example, are taught in a way where people understand them at different levels. And depending on what your knowledge is or what your, you know, that's kind of how they were taught. And so that's kind of how I look at every video I watch is like, I'm probably understanding this at an entirely different level than somebody else. I'm getting different things out of it. And so that's kind of where that was a really bad analogy probably because I'm nowhere near that kind of a teacher, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's just an experience. Hopefully that different kinds of people in different situations can get a little something out of, even if they get one thing out of it that they enjoy watching or that helps them in their experience. That's kind of my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Without rambling on and showing every frame I pull up, every little tweak of the Hive tool, and just, I mean, I try to make sure what I'm showing them is stuff that's going to, you know, it's not wasting their time as well.
That's the thing is trying to keep the dead time out, and then
it is hard.
I'll have a whole lot of stuff that it gets cut out because I'll go through a whole explanation or a soapbox or something, and I'll cut it all out. But I do know that I have. So when people see the next videos, you know, they're going to be like, look at Mike. Before the last ones we saw, there were no supers, and now half his stand is gone, and not going to know it. I didn't. I'm gonna be honest. The last 2 weeks, I put the camera down. I had to get some work done. And you talk about being able to get work done. It wasn't that I didn't shoot footage. I would shoot some footage here and there, but I was rolling, getting some work done.
You have to.
And so I'm actually taking my videos now and having to explain, okay, guys, I know this is a vlog, but hey, all right, so you missed a bunch. And I'll do some clips here and there, and I'm going to kind of insert some stuff. But, man, talk about just the time it does take sometimes. When you got to get some work done, like I can imagine, Bruce, you especially, I just don't know. I still don't know how you do this. I don't know how you do it.
My typical day in the bee yard with filming for YouTube is usually what I do is I show up and, you know, when we had the big group of us, I could do it a little easier because I had a lot of people doing it. Well, I'm doing it myself. Sometimes if I'm not sure how the day is going to go, I'll start off like at 1 or 2 bee yards and get in a groove. And then I'll pull out the video equipment at maybe the 3rd bee yard or whenever it is. And I'll just but I usually just 1 or 2 hives to start off with. And I just film that. And then I just, I put the camera down until I'm done and say, this is what happened. Cause I can't film everything I'm doing. I can't spend, you know, 2.5 hours filming, you know, for a 15-minute video or 30-minute video when I've got, you know, 80 hives to go through in a day. I just can't do it, but I'll set it up. I've gotten to where my intros are quicker and, I'll set that camera up and then we'll just go through it. Like the video that just dropped, when it was a couple days ago. What I did on that one was is that the one where I'm trying to think, maybe it's the one I'm editing now. I have to go back and even see what the last video I dropped was, but anyway, it might be the one I'm doing now, but it was where I was introducing the honey supers. I think it's the one I'm working on now. And, I was going to talk about how I was going to remove the Apivar strips, Apivar 2.0 strips, make sure the health of the colony and see if they were appropriate for honey supers and add a box or 2 on the ones that were ready. Explain why I did it and how I did it. Well, the first one I went into, I'm like, let's check out this one. And it was a dud. It's like a weak colony. Didn't really need a honey super, I don't think, if I remember right. And so I just like, well, that was quick. I pulled the strips out and we just closed it up. I think it just was a little behind because I might have pulled 2 splits out of it. So it just wasn't quite caught up with the rest of them. And so I did one more. The next one I did actually was appropriate to add the honey super onto. I explained what I did there. And then I was just pretty much done filming. You know, it took a little while to get that done, but it's so easy to get caught up in trying to capture all the different angles. I can't do that anymore, but yeah, it is nice. Mike, occasionally I'll just take a day where I don't even touch the camera. I may snap a couple of pictures for some reels or shorts, you know, on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever. But as far as like trying to film a full length long video, some days I just say I just can't do it, and I just get to work and so much more efficient that way.
Tomorrow when I go over, like I didn't have time to do it today, to go and flip my buckets back over. I've had them, you know, turned off for the last 3 days, 4 days, and I would have loved to have gone over today, but I just did not have time. So tomorrow when I go over my colonies, I ran out of pollen patties. I ran out of even Hive Alive pollen patties. Like I literally ran out of everything as far as pollen patties. My bad. So I mixed up my own. I found a decent recipe. I had some pollen sub that I was open, given to them in the open feed. And I just mixed up my own. So tomorrow when I go over, it's literally, I've got them already cut in the little squares like what I like. If I were to film to go through, 12 colonies and flip syrup back on and throw a pollen patty in, I can rip through that in, not even 10 minutes. It's just crack a lid, throw one in, flip a bucket, and do this and that. Versus if I take a camera over there and set up tripods and do all that type of stuff, then I turn a 10-minute little thing into 45 minutes to an hour.
Yep. Well, the mistake I make is the same thing as I'll put the camera down. The problem is I make the mistake of not bringing the camera with me. At least have it with you, so that when something, because then there's those times I'm like, oh my goodness, this
I
is
wish I
what
could
I
show
wanted.
this.
This is what I talked to him about last week.
Yeah.
Is exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
Or you get that 5-pound swarm that broke a branch off of a wax myrtle, and you don't have your camera with you, and you got to catch it.
You could have had a yappy video if you'd had your phone with you. Or I guess you probably did have your phone, but
I did get my phone. I do got my phone, and I got some video footage. But you're trying to hold your phone, and you're trying to. I didn't have a tripod for it.
This thing right here, though, I'm telling you, this. I mean, it's not the quality, probably, maybe not the quality of the Osmo or the GoPro, but man, I used a different camera for a while, but this thing, man, it just works. It just works so good, and it's so handy.
I just can't get the video off of it as easy as I can my Osmo. I don't think my Osmo.
You don't have a MacBook, do you? You don't have an Apple?
No,
computer.
And I think like this thing here does great video. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't have a way to get it off as easy. So
all mine go right onto my Mac because I've got. That's why I bought a Mac. Was our home computer that my wife used, our PC was it didn't like Apple at all. It hated Apple. And so and plus we used it for all of our family stuff. So I went and just got a MacBook back around 20 or 21. It's not a super fancy one, but really all I do on it is I watch videos and then I do edit videos on there. So it doesn't have, it works because if it's on my phone, it's on my computer automatically. So I just pull it into the editing software and it just works so good. That way, I've got all the same apps that I do on my phone. They're on my computer. It works great.
My phone is an Android though. And the only thing that I do as far as like videos, I very, very rarely ever will use any like video footage from this in a full length video. The only thing that I do with this when I ever take video is I use this to edit my shorts because I'll film little clips on here. And I found a pretty decent editing software that's all on the Android. So I'll edit it and do, the transitions, everything like that. So I'll do my shorts completely on the Android. But other than that, everything it's solid Mac. But like Bug Farmer said there too, he spent 7 hours editing the video for Friday. So, you complicate the whole
people
problem.
Don't realize,
Oh yeah. When you're going to film, you complicate that process because just like what I said, I could go over there tomorrow and be done with my yard in 10 minutes, or I could take an hour if I wanted to film it and explain and do all this and that. Well, that's just that initial front end of it. And then if you want to do any bit of editing, you're spending hours upon hours afterwards. So, you figure instead of 10 minutes, I could spend 45 minutes to an hour. And then you're going to spend, on a basic video, I usually spend 2 to 3 hours editing. So you've taken a 10-minute process and you've made it 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's
a big process. I almost, and because of the editing, I almost went Mac twice now. And most of my laptops I was going to replace with Macs, but I chickened out at the last minute because I just use so much Excel. I use so much Word. I use all that. And I just get, everybody's like, you can get this app for it. And it's like, okay, that's great. But when you actually export it, it doesn't come out the same. And I just can't. And but
I've learned, and Bruce, I appreciate it. For what I'm doing tomorrow, I'm going to add syrup, and I'm going to add pollen patties. That's, in my mind, those are tasks that it is what it is. The next time I do go over there and film, though, my colonies, if you watch the video that will come out Friday, I explain a little bit about, managing the spacing and things like that, and talking about the frames and all that type of info. And then I kind of talk about what I'll do next. And that's the very next video that I'll have then that I film. I'll be switching over from my story and a half to then it'll be single brood, and I'll be setting up when I move to my demarays. So that's where there will be a little bit more info in that video, just because I'll be transitioning from the deep medium configuration to my singles, explain, why I do like the singles. I will never run another double deep ever again. I love my singles. Just, I could just talk and talk and talk about singles anymore. But, once I switch over to the singles here in the next coming days, if I do need to check anything with my brood chambers, I go right down to that deep, pull off the excluder, and I can check what I need to look at, and boom, I'm done. It's quick, But I don't know, like certain little, I don't know, just those basic tasks like pollen patties and that. It's like, I don't want to film that. It just, I don't want to complicate the whole process. So
yeah, but you got that's how I'll do. And I'll go, okay, well, all I'm doing is I'm going to do like 40 hives today. And so I know if I'm going to go out and do 40, I'm going to do the same thing over and over. I'm cracking them up, open them up, boom, boom, boom. And then I'll say, so then I'll go out to do it and don't bring my camera because I know it's going to be monotonous. Well, doggone, if I get out there and there's that one thing and like, man, I need my camera for this. So that's where I say, yeah, don't plan on shooting no video, but bring that camera because, or your phone or whatever, be ready to shoot that video, because you'll explain something one day that you don't get to show, and then you'll get out there and you're able to show it.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's one thing. There are times I pull up in the bee yard and I'll just say, I'm going to leave my phone in my truck. I'm not even going to, but then I'll see stuff. I'll be like, oh, I got to show this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to.
Yeah, I have a queen on a frame. I'm carrying the frame with the queen on it, going to get my phone real quick. And I'm just like, oh, don't fall off of there. Don't fly. You know what I mean? It's just like,
so funny story. Gracious. I did that last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Beginning of the season, I had the camera sitting over on another hive, and I walked back to get it with a frame, carrying her. And halfway back, she fell off somewhere, and I lost her. And it was the beginning of the season. And I was like, "You got to be kidding me! You got to be kidding me!" And I saw her fall, and I couldn't find her in the grass. It was sickening. Big, beautiful queen too.
Brian, there's a question for you if you want to address it.
Yeah, I see
We've been going for a while, but that might be good if you can do that.
No, I did this. Explain briefly how I can transition my double deeps to singles. All my bees are in the top box anyways. If they're all in the top box right now, pull that bottom box off. Just pull it off. When I transitioned from doubles to singles, I basically looked at those boxes and I took the very best 10 frames. And that was what I put down into my singles. You have to watch, and I learned this, your frame management has to be, you don't have as much wiggle room like you do with doubles. So if you're starting to get like pollen bound and things like that, you have to just stay on top of that. But all that I did, it was basic. Take your 10 best frames and shift them down to that single. What I do though, also, like my singles, it's kind of like a hybrid system, so to say, because like right now I've got a deep and a medium. So I do give them full range of those two boxes. Now, when I do throw my excluder on here very soon, then it'll be a single brood management up until late in the fall when I pull that excluder off again. But that's all I would do. Go through, find your 10 best frames. You will see also, when I've run my singles, I have had 8-9 of those frames with brood on them. I've had brood on the outer edge frames. Literally, when I pull an outer frame just to allow that spacing, I've found my queen laying on an outer edge frame. So that's one of the things that you'll have to consider is if you do go to singles, just watch out because that queen can be anywhere. And just make sure you manage their space so they're not getting pollen bound or anything down there. If they're starting to get nectar bound a little bit, you have to stay on top of them with singles, or you're going to run into just some problems real quick. But yeah, that's easy. 10 best frames and throw the excluder on and rock and roll. So
I wanted to do single brood for a while, but it's just going to be too much work. I like the way you do it with that story and a half, but it's just like this year I'd have been scrambling right now because they're filling the second deep slam full of nectar, which would have been 2 honey boxes. But at the same time, man, they're so packed, like, and the main flow won't come for another 3 or 4 weeks. But wow, I've tried and broken my head, but I can't find anybody down here that does it because of that, because of the length of the season. But I have broken my brain trying to figure out a way to run single brood management down here. It's tough.
It works really well in my yard.
Well, last year, for example, I made some splits. They glue up into singles, and so I put queen excluder honey supers on top, and it worked okay. But they were new hives last year. But the double deeps were just so perfect though, because the double deeps down here, when that tallow flow hits, they'll fill up 3 or 4 supers at least of honey. The double deep, they'll maintain that dome. If you put enough honey supers on there, they'll maintain the dome where you have brood, you have the honey dome, and then you have, it's just got everything, the pollen, the honey. It's just a nice dome. And so you can just take the honey supers off, the queen screw off, put a lid on. And even though there's a lot of bees hanging out for the first little while after the honey flows over, it just seems like they just have all the resources they need. I think my issue with the single deep down here is you pull the honey off, and I just don't think there's quite enough room in some of these stronger colonies. It's just more, to me, it's more work intensive to try and do that. And it's just easy. I think doubles, I guess the word that I've heard used a lot is that doubles are just more forgiving. I think you can you might be able to maximize brood, honey ratio to brood production with a single possibly, but the fact is when we pull the honey supers off, you got to double deep. There's still some honey and you're not taking all the honey, so to speak. I know you leave a medium on there.
I do, but my medium that's on there right now, I will never extract. I'll never pull honey out of that medium. So like where the brood is in there now, like most of my mediums that are on there now on pretty much all the colonies over there now, there's 5-6 frames of brood up in that medium. Now I'll just leave that there. When I throw the excluder on, all that brood's going to emerge out, and they're just going to backfill it. So
that's you watch like so I tried to mold myself, and I watch Ian do it, and that's what he does. He lets a second deep. He actually does a second deep full of brood, and then as his flow is starting to come on, he'll shake them down, put an excluder in, and that's now a honey super, of course. And I do that like Bruce did with singles and things. The problem is here. So that's in Canada. You're further north. We start in February. Well, I'd be up in that second deep at the beginning of April, no problem. Now I have to wait and hope the privet comes in. And if not, I shake them down later. Once I do that, our dearth is going to go from July all the way through the end of September. I would have to feed those singles from July to September to keep them alive. That would be the biggest downfall I could see. It's just for me, it's a length of season. Like if our season was 4 months, then I could see 4 or 5 months. Then I could see myself pretty easily doing some single brood management, but it's just so doggone long down here. Oh, I've cracked my head trying to do it. Trust me, but I just can't. And the old timers here in the South did run story and a half. That was a normal thing down in the South, and I think they did a lot of the stuff similar to how you're doing it, Brian.
Yeah, it works. I mean, it as long as you stay on top of it, it works out really well. It does. So, but what we're what, hour and 46 minutes here. What's going on in the next week for Mike Berry?
I think I'm almost got them on cruise control. I'm slapping supers on. I've got supers on almost everything that's strong enough. All I'm doing right now is just like Bruce was saying earlier, I'm cruising the tops looking for who's filling what. Tallow is showing some buds. I just shot a picture. I think I sent it to Bruce. I would send it to you, but you don't know what you're looking at. But because you don't know what a tallow is. But the tallow's got little buds about this long already springing up, and privet's blooming. So I'm hoping if we get a privet bush here and a privet bush there, even though they're full and white and all that, we're not going to get a good flow off of that. If we get a big steady privet push, we're going to be doing good. So it's just going to be supering, and I think I got a half a dozen boxes that are I'm still fighting with queens. I'm getting ready to start doing some combines because at this point, no more queen fights. It's time to combine and get ready for the honey flow. And really that's it. Just configure for the honey flow and check supers, man. Get supers on. And I got a lot of foundation to draw on supers. I got about 600 frames coming here Friday to start divvying out to other people and getting on mine.
Wow.
Plus what all the drawing I've already got. So
yeah, I'll tell you here, my next few days now, thankfully I've got a 4-day weekend, but I got Friday off and Monday off. So, but my Friday is squashed because I'm having something done. So my whole Friday is just kaput. Saturday, I'm going to be down at Greg's all day, and then I'm delivering packages up to the club. So my whole Saturday is gone. Sunday, that'll probably be the day when I go over and I'll shift my queens down. If they aren't down, I already, my last inspection, I found a good percentage of my queens were already down below, laying up brood pretty good. So I'll slap excluders on, get things shifting in that direction. I may do some other frame management. It just all depends on what I see for the ones that I added in. But it's going to get real here pretty darn quick. So like you all are kind of in cruise mode up here. My last, like those deep inspections I did, I probably saw about 10 walking drones throughout the whole yard. So we haven't even hit the point where, like, we haven't even had swarms up here yet. So it's going to get real here pretty quick, though. So I've got to prep, though, and I'll tell you, like somebody said earlier, like Ian was saying just about equipment and all that stuff. Before I go down to Greg's on Saturday, tomorrow, one of the tasks when I do flip my buckets, throw the pollen patties on, I'm going to go out into the room, and I've already got my darn notepad here where I need to take an inventory so that I know the number of boxes I come home with. So I'm going to prep everything here soon, just because once things start going and I start doing those demarays, I can't run out of equipment at that point, just because I'll be manipulating the colonies and you have to stay on top of it. If you run out of spacing, your timing is not right, then it's just the whole process is going to get messed up. So, but yeah, it's going to get fun here in the next probably week, 2 weeks up here. It's going to get real fun. So, yeah,
it's always fun.
Oh yeah, I tell you what, I cannot wait. Like I looked at my wife the other day and I said, weather's going to be warm. I'm going to get to play with the bees. And she just had this big old smile on her face because she knew I'm going to be out from under her hair.
It's good for both of you, huh?
So,
right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, but Bruce, what are you doing the next week?
Well, I'm not quite on cruise control yet. I'm probably a little behind on stacking supers. I've got about half of them out, maybe not quite half of my supers out, but I'm going to be this week, and I'm going to do the best I can to get the OAE treatments in, extended release oxalic acid, treatments I've got ready to go in on them. And then I'm going to stack those between the bottom and top box. And I'm going to, you know, put the first honey super. I'm going to, whatever I need to do with honey supers, I'm going to do that. And then I'm pretty much going to stay out of the, you know, on the production colonies for the most part, unless I pull a frame or two out here or there for maybe a split or unless I detect a problem. It's going to be mostly, you know, with the production colonies, it's going to be mostly just super management from here through June, you know, so we're kind of, but it's going to take me a week or two to get that done. And once I get that done, then we'll be set up pretty well. I think we're just starting to have a flow coming in, a pretty decent little flow, I think. And so now if I can get these honey supers on, hopefully they'll go ahead and fill them up. I'm usually a little bit earlier than this getting the supers on, but this year it seems to be working pretty well. I've never split them as hard as I have this year, though, as early as I have. You know, one split is one thing, but I've pulled 2 splits out of some of these. And so the other thing I'm going to be doing is going in and the splits I made, I think 2.5, almost 3 weeks ago now, where I put cells in them. The last video that dropped, actually, someone reminded me in the comments. I peeked in on them. I talked about that earlier, and something, you know, a lot of the queens were mated. They're starting to lay. There were a few that I think didn't make it. They didn't get, I think it was probably about 70, maybe 80% take, which was decent. And so I'm going to get those managed, get those in bigger boxes, particularly the ones that are in the Pro Nukes. They need to be in, I think they need to be in wooden boxes, not sitting in the sun in the heat. And then the ones that are queenless, if there are some of those that didn't take, I'll be combining those probably with some of the ones that did and just turning them into a, you know, basically a full deep box. So that's what I'll do. And I'm just going to, you know a lot of people use a new newspaper combine, and I just put them together and it seems to work. So I probably lost a few colonies doing that, but last year, the year before, I had some drone layers or laying workers, and a couple of those jokers I just stacked on top of a strong colony, took that box and just set on top of a strong colony, and the bees just straightened it right out. Like you didn't even skip a beat. The next time you came in there, everything straightened out and everything looked good. Started stacking honey supers, but I know that scares some people. So anyway, I've got a lot to do. I've got probably around 150 to 170 collies now. I'm not even sure. Asking plastic or metal excluders, I'm going to be using, I use mostly plastic. I just like the plastic just fine. No problems at all with those. They're cheaper. Probably metal might be better overall, but I just mostly have plastic, and I've been using them for years. And some of them are starting to break down a little bit. But
the only downside that I found for metal, and I actually had a couple do this, was exactly when I had colonies that really, like those colonies that were very heavy with the propolis, and they would glue things down like crazy. I actually had a couple metal excluders where they got so bent from trying to get them off that you could look at them and see where like they were not lining up straight. And I didn't use them again because people have said, you know, you got to watch torquing them, twisting them, that if you end up bending something, then, well, what if your queen gets up there? So plastic, that don't happen. I grab it and just, you know, and then to clean it off, yeah, I mean, it's easy. So, Paul, that's funny. A 7K giveaway at Cowan. Sure.
Anyway, so that's what I just got a lot. I'm doing a little bit of everything. I've got some people. My son-in-law wants to go out and do some bees with me. He's helped me in the past, Rylan, and then a friend of his is in here he's from Canada. He may help me out a little bit on Friday afternoon or Saturday. Those 2 guys, and I've got, you know, I've always got people that want to come hang out and just look at the bees, and I've got one guy that wants to just help, and along with my son-in-law, those guys want to help, and so if I can recruit a couple of folks to help me that want to be, then I can maybe move faster. It's just, as you guys know, when you're doing it all by yourself, it's
a lot.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And Mike, you guys both know this, but Mike particularly, I know you've been down here and you've had people helping you. So it's just amazing how much faster even 2 people goes. It goes faster than twice as fast, if that makes sense. It's like you can go 3 times as fast if you got 2 people. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy how much faster things go. And so, but I don't know. Anyway, I got a lot of work to do. I don't know how I'm going to get it done. I've got a new wealthy, some folks that are paying me. They've got 16 colonies on their property. It's about 45 minutes the opposite direction of a lot of my hives. And so I need to get up there. They just got their hives established. And I'm telling you guys I'm doing this, but I'm really I doubt if I'll be shooting footage there because it is a private place and it's, you know, just out of respect for them, they may not want it. You know, I mean, anyway, it's just one of those things where I don't know that they want me shooting footage there, but I got 16 of the splits we did when Greg were here were those colonies that we got established there, and they were doing really well. I did a short up there when I was checking on them for the first time a week or two ago, and man, the bees were just working the frames, just the smell. It was just really incredible. It's just like a short kind of how bees are awesome. And, but so I've just got a lot. I don't know how I do it. I don't know how I'm going to get it done. And sometimes I just don't get it done, but somehow the bees are somewhat forgiving. And, if they swarm, they tend to make their own queens when they do that usually. Mm-hmm. And so I know I have bees that swarm every year, and I think that's honestly how a lot of my bees get requeened, and I never even know about it. The only time I find out about it is when I go in the colonies and it's a queen I knew I marked and she's not marked anymore. And she looks young. I probably, well, that hive probably super severe. They're swarmed on me, and somehow they kind of know what they're doing if we just give them the chance to do it. But I've got a lot to do, but like Mike was saying, kind of cruise control. My goal is within 2 weeks to be at that point to where it's mostly just managing honey supers and maybe managing splits here or there a little bit, but not super long days in the bees, you know, coming up maybe in a couple of weeks for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then it's going to be harvesting the spring honey. And then a month later, harvesting the summer honey, and then back to the, let me tell, I didn't tell you guys this, but today I made an order of bottles. I ordered 2 pallets of bottles. It's much cheaper that way, which was a total of, how many was it? It was like a total of like 4,800 bottles. It was 32. So it was 16 2-pound boxes of 2-pound bottles, 8 boxes of 1-pound bottles, and 8 boxes of 1.5-pound bottles that I sell at Apple Farms. And so I just, the shipping is so much cheaper that way. And but man, that was like a $4,300 purchase on just bottles. So that shows you how stinking crazy I am right now.
Wow.
Anyway, it's kind of time to shut this thing down. We appreciate everyone being on here tonight. Mike, thanks for coming on and joining us. It's always great to have you on here.
Always an honor.
We've had some really good guests on here in recent weeks, and we appreciate all you guys who come on and help us here on the Stream Team, and also especially all the people in the chat tonight who have been in here. Once again, I usually say, there's a lot of familiar faces, and I've seen some faces, some names I didn't recognize, and we just appreciate this thing. We've been going over 4 years now, and we still are getting a significant number of people on here every Wednesday night whenever we do this thing, and so we're truly blessed, and we appreciate all you guys being on here. And I'm going to try to. I can't do it like Greg does, but I just like to tell everyone we appreciate you being here, and just remember to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. Thanks for watching.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
See y'all.